So the number one question that I get asked here on my YouTube channel is, what is the name of the original song that you're sampling? I usually just won't reply to those messages, but I am gonna make a video and share with you why I choose the songs that I sample. What do I hear when I'm gonna sample something? And keep in mind, before I jump into this, is that listening to music is so unique, is different for everybody. I might hear something in a record that you're not gonna hear. You might listen to something that I would hear, I'm like, I don't know what you're hearing. All it takes is one small second for me to be triggered. So whenever I go into a record store, every record shop is gonna be different. The way they organize their vinyl is just gonna be completely different. But one thing that I enjoy going towards first is the international section. I feel like just jumping into an international section where you have a lot of Latin, different parts of the world, you could find some really good music that is not so popular. I usually like to stay away from popular artists, and that's where I find some very interesting records. Now, how do I know this is gonna work or not? I'll probably just have my phone while I'm at the record store and I'll see a cover of a certain album, and if it looks interesting to me, I'll see if I can look it up on YouTube or on iTunes and see if I could listen to a couple of the songs that are in the album, and if some of them sound good to me, the textures, the sound quality, the way it was recorded, I'm keeping that and I'm taking it with me. But it doesn't always work that you're gonna find some very unique records that you can't even hear on YouTube. And those are the ones that I also want to take with me because they're not popular. Now, something that I enjoy is slow tempo music, probably something that's like in the BPM of 70s or 80s, because there's a lot for me to play with. And I could separate certain sections. I can chop that up into quarter notes and rearrange it, pitch it down a few semitones. If something is up in the hundreds or 100 above BPM, yes, I can chop it up into quarter notes, but it gets a little complex for me to start pitching it to a certain degree that I just cannot work with it anymore. I'll let you hear a little small snippet of this song right here so we could dissect what I'm doing with this specific song. Okay, that's all I'm gonna play, but I went ahead and sampled that into my MPC. And in my MPC, like as you heard, it's very slow tempo. And when it's a very slow tempo song, I can chop it up right here into my pads. I actually filled up bank A, B, C, and D with a bunch of different sample sections from that song. And once I have it right here in my pads, I'm able to go into my program editor, and I usually like to pitch down my program, my sample chop program, about 2 semitones. Like I said, I usually don't like to go 4, 5, 6 semitones. It just starts sounding like, it just doesn't sound right to me. I like just 2 semitones down. And that's why when I select records that have a slow tempo, minus 2 semitones on those type of songs, sounds very, very nice. And when there's vocals that are in the record that I want to chop, I love it. I'm not the type of person that wants to isolate the vocals. I was messing a little bit with Serato stems, and it was actually really fun, but then I kind of went back and said, you know what, nah, I like to keep the integrity of the sample that I'm using, and I don't want to interfere with the quality of it. And also when it comes down to vocals and drums in the background that I might want to take out, I leave it right there. And I want to leave it right there because it makes it fun for me to listen to small sections that I could grab. So it just makes it fun for me to leave all these pieces right here. And now something to keep in mind is that when I'm on my MPC and I have banks A all the way through D filled up, there's so many chops right here. And where it becomes fun is when you're mixing different pads or different chops and finding a melody or a sequence. And this takes a long time. I could spend this part of the process is where I invest the most time in, because I want to make sure I come up with something that I can listen to back and forth. But in this case, I want to play with this. Like let's say in bank C, I have, okay, I want to keep that. And then I'm gonna switch it. And now something really cool with this MPC Live, any of the newer MPCs will have it, is you'll notice that you could go to your sample drum program, hit the little pencil icon, and you can color code your pads. So for instance, if I want to make sure I remember what pads I'm triggering in this first sequence, I'm going to color these pads purple. And then in bank B, I have these pads purple right here, the ones that I want to trigger. So I know where I'm at while I'm performing this sequence. So now I have this going on in sequence 1. And that's going to repeat for 4 bars. And then I want to go into sequence 2, and in sequence 2 I already have my drums and my bass dropping in. But I don't have no sample chops because I want to just switch it up a bit in sequence 2 and not use the same introduction sequence that I created with the chops. I want to use something a little different. Different parts of this. Yeah. Woo. Okay, so now I'm finding something different. Now again, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just triggering different chops as long as I'm sampling on the downbeat. And some people have asked me, like, what do you mean on the downbeat? I gotta keep in mind, there's people that watch these videos and they're from all different backgrounds. So some people know what that means, some people don't. So what the downbeat means is when I'm listening to a song, the way it's playing, I count in my head 1, 2, 3, 4, and as I'm counting those measures, I'm doing slices or chops in every downbeat. So when I have it on my pads, I'm able to trigger different pads and it's still gonna land on my drums. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, let me know. I'll do my best to make a video on that topic. Yeah. I'm gonna try to dig up a little bit more on different banks. I'm gonna record this right here on the sequence. Like, I like how this, I don't know what instrument that is, but it rings out right before it jumps back into the beginning of that bar, which the beginning of that bar has some crash cymbals. I like that solo note being triggered by itself because it kind of opens up and gives a little bit of space, and then it goes back into the loop that we're going. So the way I hear this is just, I'm in a vibe or I'm in the zone, I'm just nodding my head, and as soon as it drops into that last little section, it gives me a quick break before it goes back into that loop. And now, the really cool thing about the MPC is that you could, let's say we like how this sounds. Like, that sounds good. I could go in here and I want to open this up. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to go right here, copy that sequence, and let's put that in sequence 3. Now we have that in sequence 3, and in sequence 3, I want to work with different sections of this sequence. I don't like that his voice kind of sneaks in right here. Is this one, pad 10. I don't want to hear his voice all the time. Maybe every now and then it's cool, but I don't want that to be triggered all the time. So I could just, as you guys notice, I looped that second bar. Using this Q link, the fourth Q link, the last two knobs right here, you can select your end point, your start point, and just work on that specific section. So let's say I want to delete that first. I'm just going to trigger different pads and see what sounds right for that downbeat. That sounds good. And then I'm going to open it back up. so I went ahead and played that back. I actually didn't like how that sounds. Another thing to keep in mind is that try different things out. If they sound a little weird and funky, try it out. What's the worst that can happen? If you don't like how that sounds, take it back to where it was. Another thing we could even do, again, this is just trying some weird ideas. Go to your samples, make sure this is on current sample, and we can reverse this and see how this sounds. Yeah, okay, I like how that sounds. This is something that I enjoy and that I can do all day long. This process right here is what makes this art so fun for me. And this is why I enjoy slower tempo samples, because I could manipulate them and just drop them down 2 semitones. And right here, I have a lot to play with. Now from here, I obviously would go through, and if I want to create multiple sequences and just try different ideas, and at the end, I'll come back to this a few hours later or the next day, I'll hear some of these sequences and I'm like, yo, that was garbage. I'm gonna throw that away. And there's certain sequences that I really like how those loops sound, and I'll stick with that. Thank you so much. I'll catch you guys on our next video. Peace.
Birds.